Between the stones and destiny, the Apache girl found her cowboy. The sun painted the rocks in gold and red every morning, and the wind carried the stories of her ancestors through the canyons. From a young age, Nayeli learned that life here was not easy, but it was full of lessons. Every day, she watched her mother prepare food, weaving herbs and spices together, and listened to her father teach the children about the animals that roamed the land. Life moved slowly, but it was alive with rhythm, with the heartbeat of the desert beneath their feet. Even as a little girl, Nayeli had a spark of curiosity that set her apart. While other children played near the small creek, she would wander further, her small feet stepping carefully over stones and scrubby bushes, following the whispers of the wind. She loved the feeling of the sun on her face and the crunch of sand under her toes. The desert, harsh and dry, seemed like a friend to her rather than an obstacle. Sometimes she imagined that the stones themselves had stories to tell, stories of bravery, of love, and of journeys that stretched far beyond the horizon. She liked to pretend she could understand them. The elders in the settlement often told stories by the fire at night, stories of heroes, of animals with spirits, and of the stars that guided travelers in the desert. Nayeli would sit quietly, listening with wide eyes, feeling the warmth of the flames on her face. She learned to respect the land, to understand the rhythm of nature, and to find patience in stillness. Her grandmother would say, "The desert tests you, Nayeli, but it also teaches you who you are." Nayeli took those words to heart. She felt a deep connection to her people, to the stones that surrounded them, and to the endless sky above. Despite her love for her home, Nayeli often felt a pull toward the unknown. She would stand on the edge of a mesa, looking out over the wide-open desert, imagining what lay beyond. There were places she had never seen, people she had never met, and stories she had yet to live. The thought of adventure filled her with excitement and fear at the same time. She would tuck a small rock into her pocket, a reminder of the safety of home, before venturing further into the wild landscape. Every step into the desert made her feel alive, as though the world was opening itself to her, one quiet, dusty path at a time. Her days were busy with work, though. Nayeli helped care for the animals, gathered firewood, and collected water from the small springs hidden between the rocks. She learned to notice the signs of the desert, which plants held water, which paths were safe to walk, and which animals could be trusted. She watched the hawks circling above, learning patience from their steady flight. She noticed how the wind moved differently at different times of the day, and how the stones glimmered after the rare desert rains. Every small detail became a lesson, shaping her into a girl who could move confidently through her world. Yet, Nayeli was also a dreamer. While working in the fields or fetching water, she would let her mind wander to stories she imagined herself living. She imagined meeting people from distant lands, learning new skills, and exploring mountains, rivers, and forests she had only heard about in tales. Sometimes she would lie under the stars at night, tracing constellations and thinking about the adventures that might await her someday. These dreams did not take her away from her home. Instead, they made her appreciate it even more. She learned that the heart could hold many places at once, the safe, familiar home and the wide, mysterious world beyond. Nayeli was not alone in her journey of growing up. She had friends who shared her curiosity, though none of them dared to wander as far as she did. She also had a small circle of family who supported her in quiet ways. Her younger brother, Tayan, often followed her steps, though he was less brave and more cautious. Her parents sometimes worried about her ventures, but they knew her spirit could not be tamed. They often watched her from the edge of the settlement, hoping she would be safe, and trusting that the desert, which had shaped generations before her, would also guide her. The rocks and mesas of the desert were Nayeli's constant companions. She loved climbing them, feeling the rough edges under her hands and the solidness of their ancient forms. She would sit on the highest points, feeling the wind whip through her hair, and let herself imagine conversations with the stones. They seemed to hum with life, ancient wisdom hidden in their layers, as if they had seen everything that had happened in the land over centuries. In those moments, Nayeli felt both small and powerful, a single human connected to something vast and timeless. Seasons changed slowly in the desert, and Nayeli marked time by the blooming of wildflowers, the arrival of migrating birds, and the cool evenings that followed long, hot days. Each season brought new lessons. She learned patience from the dry months when food was scarce, courage from storms that swept across the plains, and joy from the rare days when the sky opened in brilliant rain. These experiences taught her to be resilient, to face challenges without fear, and to find beauty in even the harshest circumstances. Even though Nayeli was deeply rooted in her home and traditions, she felt that destiny was waiting somewhere beyond the stones. Her heart whispered that her story would not be limited to the small settlement, that the world had more in store for her than she could imagine. She dreamed of meeting people who would change her life, of moments that would shape her soul, and of journeys that would test her strength and courage. These thoughts filled her days with quiet excitement, giving her purpose beyond the daily tasks of survival. As she grew older, Nayeli's spirit became more confident, yet she retained a gentle humility. She understood that the desert had lessons for everyone, and that strength came not from force but from understanding, patience, and respect. Her connection to the land deepened, and she learned that every stone, every tree, and every animal had its place in the world. By honoring them, she honored herself. And through these lessons, Nayeli began to feel ready for the moment when her life would take a new turn, a moment when destiny would find her waiting between the stones she loved so dearly. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the jagged mesas, painting the desert in deep shades of orange and gold, Nayeli walked along the dry riverbed, her hands steady on the small herd of goats she was guiding back home. The wind carried a faint scent of sage and dust, brushing against her face and ruffling her long dark hair. She was used to the quiet of the desert, but that day, there was a strange feeling in the air, something different, almost like the land itself was holding its breath. As she reached a narrow curve between two large stones, she noticed a figure approaching in the distance. At first, she thought it was another traveler or perhaps a herder from a neighboring settlement. But as he drew closer, she realized it was a young cowboy, riding a tall, chestnut-colored horse. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, boots dusted with the earth, and a leather jacket that had seen many journeys. His presence seemed out of place, yet somehow he blended with the desert, like he belonged to the open plains beyond the horizon. Suddenly, the horse stumbled on a loose stone, and the cowboy's balance wavered. Nayeli's instincts kicked in. She ran toward him, her bare feet moving quickly over the uneven ground. "Hold on," she called, reaching out to steady the horse. The cowboy's eyes met hers, wide with surprise, and he smiled sheepishly, grateful for her quick response. "Thank you," he said, his voice calm yet carrying the rhythm of the plains. "I didn't expect to find anyone here." Nayeli felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her composure. "You should be more careful. The stones are tricky," she said, her voice steady but friendly. She guided the horse to a flatter area, letting the cowboy regain control. He dismounted carefully, brushing dust off his pants, and introduced himself as Eli. His name sounded simple yet strong, and there was a warmth in his tone that made Nayeli feel immediately at ease, despite the surprise of the encounter. Curiosity sparked between them, unspoken but clear. Nayeli asked why he was so far from the plains, and Eli explained that he had been traveling for days, looking for grazing land for his cattle. The desert had tested him more than he expected, with rocky paths and hidden canyons making the journey slower than planned. Nayeli listened intently, fascinated by his stories of wide-open fields, rolling hills, and endless skies beyond the mountains she had never seen. She felt a mixture of admiration and longing, admiration for his courage, and longing for the adventures he described. Eli, in turn, was captivated by Naeli. He noticed how confident she moved among the goats, how she understood the desert in ways he could only dream of. He asked her to show him some of the trails she knew, and she agreed, curious to see how he would navigate her world. Together, they walked through the riverbed, Eli carefully following her lead. Naeli pointed out small springs hidden among the rocks, explained which plants were safe to eat, and shared stories about the animals that roamed nearby. Eli listened eagerly, often pausing to admire her knowledge and skill. Over the next few days, Eli returned to the riverbed regularly. Each visit strengthened the connection between them, built on quiet respect and shared experiences. Naeli began to feel a sense of companionship she had not experienced before. Eli had a gentle way of observing the land, a patience that matched her own, and a sense of humor that made the long walks enjoyable. They shared small meals, sitting on flat stones as the sun warmed their backs, and talked about their dreams and fears. The world beyond the desert became a topic of endless fascination, yet Naeli never felt that Eli's stories diminished the value of her home. Their friendship deepened naturally, without force or expectation. Naeli found herself looking forward to his visits, feeling excitement that she could hardly explain. Eli admired her courage and curiosity, and he often remarked on how she seemed to understand the desert as if it were a living being. They began to explore farther together, climbing mesas that Naeli had always thought were too dangerous, and discovering hidden valleys where wildflowers grew even in the dry season. The desert, which had once felt quiet and unchanging, now seemed alive with possibility. Yet the bond they were forming was not without challenges. Both came from very different worlds, and each had to navigate the expectations and concerns of their communities. Naeli's family noticed her growing friendship with Eli and expressed worry. Her parents reminded her of the importance of tradition, of staying close to the land and the people who had raised her. Eli, too, faced questions from other cowboys who did not understand his fascination with a young girl from an Apache settlement. But despite the doubts and concerns, both Naeli and Eli knew that their connection was genuine, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. One day, as the sun was setting, Naeli led Eli to a hidden spring she had discovered months earlier. The water was clear and cool, flowing gently among smooth stones. She dipped her hands into the water, letting it trickle through her fingers, and then offered Eli a drink from her palms. He accepted, smiling at the simplicity and beauty of the gesture. "You know this land better than anyone," he said softly. Naeli smiled in return, feeling a quiet pride and a growing affection she could not yet name. Their conversations grew deeper over time. Naeli spoke of the stories her grandmother had told her, of the lessons learned from the stones and the wind. Eli shared memories of life on the plains, of sunsets that stretched endlessly and nights spent under the stars. They laughed together, shared silence together, and began to understand that their connection went beyond simple curiosity or friendship. There was a quiet recognition of something rare, a bond that neither time nor distance could easily break. Despite the comfort they found in each other, the desert always reminded them of its challenges. Sudden storms would sweep through the canyons, forcing them to seek shelter among the rocks. Wildlife crossed their paths, some curious, some cautious, and every journey required careful attention. Yet, each obstacle became a lesson, a test of their ability to work together and trust one another. They learned to rely on each other's instincts, to listen to the subtle signs of the land, and to move with patience and care. Through these experiences, their connection grew stronger, founded on shared respect and resilience. Eli began to appreciate the depth of Naeli's world. He realized that her life was not simple, but rich in ways he had never experienced. The desert, once harsh and unfamiliar, became a place of discovery and wonder through her eyes. Nayeli, in turn, felt a new sense of possibility. She realized that adventure did not always mean leaving home. It could also mean meeting someone who could see the beauty and wisdom of her world, and who could walk alongside her, respecting every part of her life. Days turned into weeks, and their bond became a steady part of both their lives. Nayeli taught Eli to ride safely through rocky paths, to recognize subtle signs of water and shelter, and to appreciate the quiet strength of the desert. Eli, in return, shared stories of courage and kindness from his journeys, teaching her that the world beyond the mesas was vast, but not always unkind. Together, they created a bridge between two worlds, learning from one another and finding joy in the simplest moments: a shared meal, a laugh, or a quiet walk at sunset. One evening, as the sky turned a deep purple and stars began to appear, Eli spoke quietly. "I never expected to find someone who could teach me so much about life," he said, looking at Nayeli with genuine admiration. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest she could hardly describe. "And I never expected to meet someone who would make the desert feel even more alive," she replied. In that moment, both realized that their meeting had been more than coincidence. It was a turning point, a moment where paths crossed and lives began to intertwine. The desert, with its stones, winds, and hidden springs, had become the backdrop for a friendship that was growing into something deeper. Nayeli and Eli continued to explore together, each journey strengthening their bond, each lesson deepening their understanding of each other and the land they walked upon. The dry riverbed where they first met became a place of memory and connection, a reminder that destiny often appears quietly, in the form of someone willing to walk beside you. By the end of that season, Nayeli felt a shift within herself. She realized that her curiosity and courage had led her not only to adventures in the desert, but also to a connection she had never imagined possible. Eli had entered her world like a gentle wind, challenging her, teaching her, and walking alongside her. And though she did not yet know what the future held, she understood that some moments, like meeting someone who changes the way you see the world, were the beginning of a story much larger than herself. As the weeks passed, Nayeli and Eli's bond grew stronger, but it was no longer just curiosity or adventure that kept them together. They had begun to trust each other in ways neither had expected. Nayeli had always been careful with her heart, aware of the fragility of trust and the power of the desert to test anyone who wandered too far from safety. Yet with Eli, that caution seemed to melt. There was something in the way he listened to her, the way he followed her lead without doubt, and the way he treated the desert and its creatures with respect. She began to see him not just as a traveler, but as a companion, someone who could understand her world without trying to change it. Eli, for his part, had come to admire Nayeli's courage and wisdom. He had traveled across plains, rivers, and hills, and met many people, but few had the strength, patience, and connection to the land that she possessed. He noticed the small details, the way she could spot a hidden spring from a distance, the gentle way she guided the goats through rocky terrain, and the stories she shared about the stones and the animals. He realized that her knowledge was not just practical, it was part of who she was, a reflection of generations who had walked these lands before her. One afternoon, Nayeli decided to take Eli to a place she had never shown anyone outside her family. It was a secluded canyon, where the walls rose high, casting shadows that danced in the sunlight. At the far end of the canyon, a small pool reflected the sky, hidden from view unless one knew the exact path. She led him carefully, her hands brushing against the warm stone, her eyes scanning the path for any danger. Eli followed closely, trusting her instincts completely. When they reached the pool, Eli's eyes widened in amazement. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I never imagined a place like this could exist here." Nayeli smiled, feeling a quiet pride. It was her secret, a part of the desert that belonged to her alone, and now she was sharing it with someone who truly appreciated it. They spent hours there that day, sitting by the water, talking about dreams, fears, and the paths that had led them to this moment. Naeli spoke of her ancestors, of the lessons learned from the stones, the wind, and the sky. Eli shared stories from his travels, of people he had met, and the challenges he had faced on the open plains. They laughed together, finding humor in small moments, and sat in silence at times, listening to the gentle sounds of the desert, the ripple of the water, the call of a distant hawk, the whisper of the wind through the canyon. Each moment deepened their understanding of each other, forming a bond that felt as natural as the stones beneath their feet. But as their friendship deepened, challenges began to appear. The elders in Naeli's settlement had noticed her frequent absence and the presence of Eli. Some elders worried that the friendship might lead her away from the traditions she had been raised to honor. They reminded her of the importance of family, of respect for the land, and of the need to preserve the wisdom of the ancestors. Naeli listened respectfully, understanding their concerns, but she also knew that her heart was learning lessons they could not see. Eli, too, faced doubts from his fellow cowboys. They were suspicious of someone so connected to a world they did not understand, someone who moved with a different rhythm and held values unfamiliar to them. Yet, Eli remained patient, knowing that trust and understanding would take time. Together, Naeli and Eli found ways to navigate these challenges. They chose their meeting places carefully, ensuring that they respected both their worlds while still spending time together. Naeli taught Eli more about the desert trails, pointing out hidden paths, small caves, and safe routes over difficult terrain. Eli shared lessons about survival on the plains, how to read the stars at night, how to find fresh water in unfamiliar places, and how to care for animals in ways that complemented her own skills. Each lesson was a gift, a bridge between two very different worlds, and it strengthened the trust they had built. Their friendship was also tested by moments of danger. One afternoon, while exploring a narrow canyon, a sudden desert storm rolled in. The sky darkened, and rain began to fall in sharp, cold sheets. The riverbed, normally dry, began to swell with water. Naeli stayed calm, guiding Eli carefully through the rising currents and slippery rocks. She found a small overhang where they could wait out the storm. As they sat together, soaked and shivering, Eli looked at her with admiration. "I've never seen anyone handle the desert like you," he said. Naeli smiled, brushing rain from her hair. "It's all about respect," she replied. "The desert will test you, but it will also protect you if you move wisely." That day, they learned even more about each other, their resilience, courage, and ability to support one another under pressure. The bond between them was also shaped by moments of quiet reflection. During warm evenings, they would sit atop mesas, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The sky would explode in shades of red, purple, and gold, and the wind would carry the scents of sagebrush and distant wildflowers. In those moments, words were not needed. Naeli felt the presence of Eli as a steady, comforting force, and Eli felt a deep respect and admiration for her strength and insight. It was in these silent moments that they both realized the depth of their connection, a feeling that went beyond friendship and hinted at something more profound, something that neither wanted to rush or name too soon. They also began to understand the importance of patience. Both came from worlds that valued experience and respect, and neither wanted to force the other into decisions or feelings. Instead, they allowed their relationship to grow naturally, enjoying the small victories, the shared discovery of a hidden cave, the successful climb of a rocky slope, the first night spent talking under the stars without fear or expectation. Each step, each shared moment, strengthened their connection in a way that felt genuine and lasting. Eli began to notice the subtleties of Nayeli's character, the gentle way she encouraged others, the determination in her eyes when faced with a challenge, and the quiet wisdom in her advice. Nayeli noticed Eli's patience, his willingness to learn, and the kindness in his gestures. She saw how he respected her world, how he did not try to change it, and how he moved carefully through the desert with an awareness she had rarely seen in outsiders. This mutual respect became the foundation of their growing bond, creating a partnership that balanced curiosity, adventure, and understanding. There were also small, joyful moments that deepened their connection. They raced each other along the riverbed, laughed when one stumbled or misjudged a step, and shared simple meals together, fresh goat cheese, berries, or bread Eli had carried from his travels. Music occasionally found its way into their days, with Eli softly singing songs of the plains and Nayeli joining with gentle hums of Apache tunes. These moments, though seemingly ordinary, were filled with warmth and familiarity, making each encounter something to treasure. As the season changed, Nayeli realized that Eli had become more than a companion or a friend. He had become someone who could share her world, someone who could walk beside her without diminishing her roots, someone who could respect the land and her people while introducing new ideas and experiences. She began to understand that trust, patience, and shared respect were the true markers of a strong connection. And she also began to feel a quiet excitement, a sense that destiny had brought them together not by chance, but to create a story that neither could have imagined alone. By the end of their shared season of exploration and discovery, both Nayeli and Eli had grown in ways they had not anticipated. They had faced challenges together, learned from one another, and built a friendship rooted in trust, respect, and shared experience. And though neither spoke openly of what the future might hold, they both knew that their bond had become something lasting, something that would guide them as they moved forward, whether through the desert, across the plains, or into the unknown paths of life itself. As the days grew warmer and the desert sun shone brighter, Nayeli and Eli's bond continued to strengthen. Yet with this closeness came challenges they had not fully anticipated. Their friendship, which had begun with curiosity and respect, was now drawing attention from both their communities. While they moved easily between the mesas, valleys, and hidden springs of the desert, those who cared for them began to worry. The elders in Nayeli's settlement watched with cautious eyes, unsure if Eli's presence was a good influence. They spoke of tradition, of responsibility, and of the importance of staying true to their people and ways. Nayeli listened carefully, understanding their concern, but inside she felt a quiet determination to continue learning from Eli while remaining grounded in her own world. Eli, too, began to feel the weight of others' opinions. His fellow cowboys questioned his frequent trips into the desert and his fascination with Nayeli's knowledge. "She's just a girl from a small settlement," one of them remarked. "You shouldn't waste your time with someone like that." Eli would shake his head, refusing to let their judgment cloud his mind. He saw something in Nayeli that they could not understand: her courage, her wisdom, and her connection to a world both beautiful and harsh. And he knew that their bond was worth the scrutiny. Despite these pressures, Nayeli and Eli found ways to protect their connection while respecting the concerns of those around them. They chose their meeting places carefully, often exploring areas that were quiet and hidden. They shared moments of joy and learning in secret valleys, along narrow trails, and near shaded springs. Eli continued to learn from Nayeli's deep knowledge of the land, discovering secret paths and understanding the subtle signs of nature that guided survival in the desert. Nayeli, in turn, learned from Eli's experience in the plains, acquiring skills that helped her move more confidently through rocky terrain and understand animals in ways she had not considered before. However, the pressures from their communities could not be ignored forever. One afternoon, Naeli returned to the settlement after a long day in the desert to find her grandmother waiting, a gentle but firm expression on her face. "Naeli," she said softly, "I know your heart is strong, and I see your courage. But you must think carefully about your choices. Eli is not one of us. His world is different, and the desert is not the only challenge you will face if your paths stay intertwined." Naeli felt a mix of frustration and understanding. She wanted to honor her grandmother's wisdom, but she also knew that her connection with Eli had taught her lessons she could not unlearn, lessons about trust, courage, and seeing the world with open eyes. Eli faced his own confrontation when he returned to his small camp on the plains. His fellow cowboys were skeptical, some openly mocking his fascination with a girl from the desert. "You're wasting your time," one said. "There's nothing for you out there but rocks and dust." Eli's response was simple but resolute. "There's more to her world than you see, and there's more to the world than just plains and cattle. I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here because I've found someone worth learning from." It was in these moments of challenge that both Naeli and Eli realized the importance of standing firm in their respect and trust for one another, even when others could not understand. The desert, ever present, became a sanctuary for them in the midst of these challenges. When doubts or concerns from others weighed heavily on their minds, they would retreat to the hidden springs or the cliffs overlooking the mesas. There, with the wind brushing their faces and the stones beneath them, they could speak freely, laugh, and share their thoughts without fear of judgment. They learned that the land itself could offer comfort, guidance, and a reminder that challenges were part of the journey, not obstacles to prevent it. Yet, the journey of trust was not only about facing external challenges. Naeli and Eli also had to navigate the quiet, internal struggles that came with closeness. There were moments of hesitation, moments when Naeli wondered if trusting someone from outside her world was wise, and moments when Eli questioned whether he could truly belong in her life without disrupting it. These doubts were natural, yet they used them to grow stronger together. They spoke honestly about their fears, about what they hoped to achieve, and about the importance of moving carefully, step by step, in building a lasting connection. One day, a situation arose that tested their bond in a tangible way. A sudden desert fire had started, likely from a lightning strike in the far canyon, and the wind threatened to spread it toward the paths Naeli often guided her goats through. Naeli and Eli worked together swiftly, moving the animals to safety and navigating the smoke-filled trails with precision and calm. They relied on their knowledge, skills, and each other, proving that their partnership was more than friendship. It was a collaboration built on respect, trust, and shared responsibility. By the time the fire was contained, they were exhausted but relieved. In the quiet aftermath, as the smoke cleared and the sun painted the stones with a soft glow, Eli looked at Naeli with admiration. "We make a good team," he said simply. Naeli smiled, realizing that true bonds were often proven not in words but in action. Their connection deepened further through small, meaningful gestures. Eli would bring water or food when Naeli had been exploring alone, and she would show him hidden trails or teach him to notice subtle signs of the desert. They began to anticipate each other's needs, learning the rhythm of their companionship. Even in silence, they understood one another, a quiet communication that did not need explanation. It was a trust built slowly, carefully, and deliberately, and it became a foundation neither could imagine being without. Despite the difficulties, Naeli and Eli found joy in every shared moment. They would race across rocky slopes, laugh when one misstepped, and challenge each other to climb higher than before. Nights were often spent beneath the stars, listening to the distant howl of coyotes or the gentle murmur of the wind. They shared stories from their past, dreams for the future, and even small, everyday thoughts. Each moment was precious, creating memories that strengthened their bond and made the challenges of the outside world feel less threatening. They also learned that compromise and patience were essential. Nayeli could not abandon her responsibilities in the settlement, and Eli could not stay in the desert indefinitely. They developed a rhythm, a way to honor both their commitments while still nurturing their connection. It was a delicate balance, but one they both embraced, understanding that true trust involved patience, respect, and the willingness to adjust without sacrificing core values. As the season slowly turned, both began to realize that the challenges they faced had deepened their relationship rather than weakened it. The doubts from elders, the skepticism of peers, and the unpredictability of the desert had tested them, but each obstacle had strengthened their ability to support and respect one another. They had learned that love, friendship, and trust were not about avoiding difficulties, but about facing them together, learning from them, and emerging stronger on the other side. By the time the desert was filled with the soft light of late afternoon, Nayeli and Eli could stand together on a high mesa, looking out over the vast expanse of red stones and golden sand, feeling a sense of achievement and belonging. The challenges they had faced, both external and internal, had shaped their bond, proving that it was more than a fleeting connection. It was a relationship grounded in trust, mutual respect, and the courage to face whatever the world might throw their way. They also began to realize that their story was larger than themselves. Their bond became a symbol of connection between two worlds, a testament to the power of understanding, patience, and shared respect. While they could not control the opinions of others, they could control how they treated each other, how they moved through the desert, and how they embraced the lessons of life together. And in doing so, they discovered a new kind of freedom, freedom rooted not in the absence of challenges, but in the ability to navigate them with courage and love. By the end of this season, Nayeli and Eli had faced doubts, judgment, and real danger, yet they emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. They had learned that trust is not given lightly, that love requires patience, and that true companionship is proven in the way two people navigate the world together. They had become partners in every sense, supporting, respecting, and learning from each other, ready to face whatever future paths the desert or the plains might offer. The days grew longer, and the desert seemed to glow with a warmth that promised change. Nayeli and Eli had walked many paths together, faced storms, discovered hidden springs, and learned from each other in ways neither had imagined. Through trust, patience, and shared adventures, they had forged a bond that was strong and unbreakable. Now, as the sun rose and cast golden light across the jagged mesas, it felt as though destiny itself was guiding them toward a new chapter. One early morning, Nayeli suggested they climb to the top of a high mesa, a place she had not yet explored. The path was steep and rocky, demanding focus and strength. Eli followed closely, trusting her guidance and moving carefully over uneven stones. The higher they climbed, the more the world opened beneath them. The desert stretched endlessly, dotted with mesas, valleys, and the sparkling hints of hidden springs. Nayeli felt her heart soar, the wind carrying a sense of promise and possibility. Eli, looking at her determined face, felt admiration and a deep sense of connection. They were no longer simply two people exploring together. They had become partners in life's journey, supporting and understanding each other completely. When they reached the top, they paused, catching their breath and letting their eyes take in the vastness. The cliffs dropped sharply into canyons below, and the sun painted everything in shades of red and gold. Nayeli felt a sense of awe and gratitude. The stones, silent witnesses to countless generations, seemed to welcome them, embracing both the old and the new. Eli placed a hand gently on hers, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. In that quiet moment, words were unnecessary. They understood each other completely, their hearts aligned with a rhythm shaped by respect, love, and shared experiences. The two of them sat on the edge of the mesa, talking about their past journeys and the lessons they had learned. Nayeli spoke of her family, the traditions that had shaped her, and the wisdom of the elders. She explained how the desert had taught her patience, courage, and humility. Eli shared his stories from the plains, of long rides under endless skies, of nights spent by campfires, and of lessons learned from the people he had met along the way. Each story, each memory, added depth to their understanding of one another. They realized that while their worlds were different, their values, dreams, and hearts were aligned. As the sun climbed higher, they began to plan for the future. Nayeli wanted to honor her family, her traditions, and her connection to the desert. She also wanted to explore the wider world, to experience new adventures without losing herself. Eli wanted to continue traveling, to experience life beyond the plains, but he knew that his heart was now tied to Nayeli and the desert she called home. Together, they began to imagine a life where both their worlds could coexist, a life where they could support and learn from one another while remaining true to who they were. Challenges still remained, but they felt ready to face them together. Nayeli knew her elders would not easily accept Eli as part of her world, and Eli understood that his fellow cowboys might not understand his commitment to her. Yet, they were determined to move forward with honesty, patience, and courage. They planned to introduce their communities to each other gradually, to show through actions rather than words that respect, trust, and love could bridge even the widest divides. In this, they found strength, realizing that their connection was not only personal but also a symbol of understanding and unity. In the days that followed, they continued to explore and learn together, each journey deepening their bond. Nayeli guided Eli through secret valleys, teaching him the language of the wind and the stones, the signs of animals, and the hidden springs that sustained life in the desert. Eli shared skills from the plains, how to care for horses, how to navigate long distances using the stars, and how to observe the land with patience and precision. Each lesson was a gift, each shared experience a bridge between worlds. Through these adventures, they learned that love and partnership were not about possession or control, but about support, respect, and shared growth. Even the simplest moments became significant. They would watch sunsets together, the sky ablaze with colors, feeling the quiet strength of the land around them. They laughed over shared meals, played small games, and sometimes simply sat in silence, listening to the desert and the life it held. These moments, though ordinary, were filled with connection, reminding them that life's beauty often resides in simplicity and presence. They discovered that true happiness came from understanding, trust, and the ability to cherish each other's company, no matter the circumstances. Their relationship also taught them patience in matters of the heart. Nayeli realized that love was not about rushing or forcing feelings. It was about allowing trust and understanding to grow naturally. Eli learned that commitment required respect for the other person's world, traditions, and boundaries. Together, they built a bond that was steady, resilient, and enduring. Each challenge they had faced, storms, skepticism, the harshness of the desert, had shaped them, preparing them for a future that they could embrace with confidence. One evening, as the desert sky turned pink and gold, they reached a plateau overlooking a wide canyon. Nayeli's eyes sparkled with excitement as she turned to Eli. "This place has always felt like magic to me," she said softly. "I come here when I need to think, when I want to feel connected to everything around me." Eli smiled, taking her hand gently in his. "It feels magical because you see it that way, and because we're here together," he replied. In that moment, both realized that their connection had transformed ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. The desert, with its stones, wind, and sun, had become the witness to their journey, a journey of friendship, trust, and love. As they sat there, they spoke of dreams for the future. Naeli wanted to continue honoring her heritage, to carry forward the lessons of her people, and to protect the desert that had shaped her life. Eli wanted to explore new lands, but always with her by his side, learning, growing, and sharing life's adventures together. They imagined a life where they could balance exploration with respect for tradition, adventure with responsibility, and freedom with partnership. It was a vision both realistic and full of hope, built on the foundation they had created through patience, courage, and trust. Their families and communities gradually came to understand the depth of their bond. Naeli's elders noticed her growing confidence, wisdom, and happiness, realizing that Eli's presence did not weaken her connection to her heritage but enriched it. Eli's fellow cowboys saw how he had grown in patience, respect, and understanding, learning from Naeli's knowledge and perspective. Slowly, the barriers between their worlds began to soften, replaced by curiosity, respect, and appreciation for the unique strengths each person brought to the relationship. In time, Naeli and Eli made a decision together. They would journey forward as partners, honoring both their pasts and the possibilities of the future. Naeli would continue to be a bridge between her people and the wider world, learning and exploring while remaining rooted in her heritage. Eli would share his experiences, skills, and stories, complementing her knowledge and adding to the richness of their shared life. Together, they would walk through the desert, over plains, and into whatever paths destiny had prepared for them. As the sun set behind the mesas, casting long shadows across the desert, Naeli and Eli stood hand in hand, feeling the strength of their bond and the promise of what lay ahead. The stones beneath their feet, worn smooth by generations of life and history, seemed to affirm their choice. The wind carried whispers of the past and hints of the future, and the sky stretched endlessly above, filled with stars waiting to guide them. In that moment, they knew that they had found something rare, a connection rooted in respect, trust, and love, a bond capable of bridging worlds, and a future shaped by both courage and destiny. Together, they began to walk down the slope of the mesa, each step a promise to honor the lessons of the past and embrace the adventures ahead. The desert, which had once tested and shaped them, now seemed to celebrate their journey. Naeli, the Apache girl who had grown strong among the stones, had found her companion, her partner, and her equal. Eli, the cowboy from the open plains, had discovered a world of wisdom, courage, and love he had never imagined. And together they stepped forward, ready to face life's unknown paths, knowing that whatever challenges or joys awaited, they would face them side by side.